All right, let's dive right in. If you're studying mass communications, you've got to wonder, where did it all begin? Where did movies actually come from? Well, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to rewind the clock all the way back to the late 1800s to get the real story behind cinema's birth. And trust me, it's an incredible tale of vision, teamwork, and some serious industrial genius that literally laid the blueprint for everything we watch today. So it all kicks off with this simple but totally revolutionary question from the man himself, Thomas Edison. See, he'd already conquered sound with the phonograph, and now he was looking at vision. The idea of capturing and replaying moving images, that was the next great frontier. But, a brilliant idea is one thing. Actually making it work, that is a whole different story. And this is where the popular story kinda goes off the rails. We all have this image of the lone genius inventor, right? The one guy in a lab having a eureka moment. But the birth of cinema? It completely shatters that myth. Edison, for all his brilliance, did not invent the movie camera by himself. I know, shocking, right? The real story here is all about collaboration. Okay, so let's meet the guy who's often left out of the textbooks. William Kennedy Laurie Dickson. You can call him WKL Dickson. He was this brilliant young engineer working in Edison's famous research lab out in New Jersey, and he was the one who was actually tasked with turning Edison's big abstract idea into a real working machine. He is the true unsung hero of this story. So what did Dickson and his team cook up? Well, it was this revolutionary two-part system. First, you had the kinetograph. That was the world's first motion picture camera. And then you had the kinetoscope, which was this cool, personal, peep-show style cabinet for actually watching the movies. Put them together, and boom, you've just given birth to the entire concept of film production. But listen, getting there was no walk in the park. The team had to tackle 3 huge technical challenges that had basically stumped everybody else. Before a single person could watch a single frame of film, they had to invent their way through each one of these problems. Let's break down how they pulled it off. Their process was it was ingenious. So, first problem, the early paper film just wasn't strong enough. It kept breaking. So they teamed up with George Eastman, yep, the Kodak guy, to use his new, super tough, flexible celluloid film. Okay, problem 2, how do you control the film's movement? Dickson engineered this amazing system of sprocket holes along the edge, which were pulled by a gear inspired by a pocket watch. Genius! And finally, to get a crisp, stable image, they had to perfectly sync the camera's shutter with the film's stop-and-go motion. It was an absolute masterclass in mechanical problem solving. So, with the tech finally figured out, what's the next step? You gotta turn it into a business. This wasn't just about some cool inventions sitting in a lab. This was about creating the world's very first video platform and actually getting it out to the people. And they did just that. In 1894, the first kinetoscope parlor opened in New York City. Can you just imagine it? People lining up down the block, absolutely buzzing with excitement. For just 25 cents, a quarter, they could lean into this wooden box and see something that no human being had ever seen before. A picture that actually moved. Mind-blowing stuff. And here's the kicker, something you'll appreciate. These first films, they were only about 16 seconds long. That's it. This was the original micro-content. We're talking about the great-great-grandfather of the TikToks and Reels you scroll through every single day. They were short, they were silent, and they were absolutely captivating. So the kinetoscope parlors were a massive, massive hit. And all of a sudden, Edison and Dickson had a brand new problem on their hands. They needed content. A lot of it. And this demand, this need for a steady stream of new things to watch, led to the creation of another crucial piece of the media blueprint, the world's first dedicated film studio. And it had this awesome, unforgettable name, the Black Maria. Now, it wasn't because it was glamorous or anything. Far from it. The workers thought this small, hot little studio, which was covered in black tar paper, looked and felt just like the police wagons of the day, which had the nickname Black Marias. It's just a great little piece of trivia that really brings that whole era to life, doesn't it? So what were they actually filming inside the Black Maria? Simple. They turned to the pop culture of their time, vaudeville. And why vaudeville? Well, because the acts were absolutely perfect for this new medium. Think about it. They were short, they were super visual, and they were already popular with the public. They filmed everybody they could get their hands on. Dancers, magicians, strongmen, comedians. This was, believe it or not, the very birth of content strategy.
Okay, but as groundbreaking as this all was, let's be real for a second. The early kinetograph system was far from perfect. In fact, understanding its limitations is just as important, because every single one of those problems created an opportunity for the next wave of innovators to come along and solve it.
And the hurdles were pretty significant. The camera was this huge, heavy beast, so every single shot was completely static. It also needed a massive amount of sunlight to work, which is why the Black Maria actually had a retractable roof that could open to the sky. And watching was a totally solitary experience. No sitting with your friends in a dark theater. And editing? Forget about it. It just didn't exist. Each film was just one continuous 16-second shot. That's all you got.
So why are we talking about this 130-year-old story today? Why does it matter to you? Because the fundamental blueprint they created, combining technology with content, with distribution, is the exact same model that drives our entire media landscape right now. Nothing has changed. When you boil it all down, the story reveals this timeless truth. Edison and Dickson, they built the tools, for sure. But it was the audience's intense curiosity, their desire to see something new, that fueled cinema's rise. Remember this, technology is only ever half the equation. The audience is always, always the other half. I mean, just think about that progression for a second. You go from a single viewer box in 1891 to public parlors, to the very first dedicated studio just a few years later. That entire evolution, that whole media ecosystem, it now lives in your pocket. Your smartphone is a kinetograph, it's a kinetoscope, and it's a Black Maria all rolled into one. It's a global studio and a personal cinema that you carry around everywhere you go. Edison and Dickson saw a future that other people just couldn't imagine, and they built their Black Maria to start filling that future with content. Today, the tools are literally in your hands. So the real question we have to end with is this: what will your Black Maria moment look like?